are saying it, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
That's fine. I'll ask you the question after that too. I'll ask you the question, say about the Vera, and then we'll say what about the guest. Here we go. Welcome back to The Best of Investing. I'm Edward Brown, your host, along with Mark Hahn of Pacific Private Money and Rick Warner of Keller Williams Realty. When we cut to the first commercial break, and again the theme was seldom seen on TV, here was the question. On the sitcom Cheers, Norm Peterson sat at the bar and often talked about his wife, but we never saw her face. What was her name? Rick, what's the answer?
Vera.
Vera, that is correct. And apparently you have a funny story about this.
Well, I just closed a house yesterday in Mill Valley for a nice couple that spent a fair amount of time helping them buy this place, but I never ever met the husband. So the joke was, and I even said, your husband's kind of like Vera on Cheers. I don't know that he actually exists. I've never spoke to him, never once did anything. He signed everything, of course, and via electronics and whatnot. But as far as I know, she really doesn't have a husband.
As long as you did it in front of a notary.
Well, he did that at title.
At title, okay.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Do realtors ever say that they, sold a house for not a nice couple?
Well,
did this transaction for a nice couple.
Off the radio, absolutely.
Those guys were the worst.
Actually, it's funny because I mentally prepare myself for basically 80% of my clients being some kind of neuroses or something that's going to drive me crazy.
Well, you got to figure it's a personal asset.
It's super emotional.
Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So half my job ends up being counseling or whatever, which is totally fine. And as long as I go into it with that expectation, then it kind of doesn't matter who I come across because you set your expectations low enough.
Well, I knew this attorney who probably made at the time, this is going back 20 years, and back then he probably made over $300,000 a year, which is pretty good. And he told me one time that he lost out on a house that he wanted to buy, and he and his wife loved the house, but he haggled over a $500 fixing of a fence. And his wife was all, just do it. And he goes, no, I'm an attorney, and these are my rights, and blah, blah, blah. And he lost the house. And
that's such a great point because that has end up being a lot of what I help people is trying to put things in perspective. Let's see the tree through the forest kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where, look, I get it. You're right. The $500, it should be them, but do you want to give up the whole house?
Pick and choose your battles. Right. Exactly. Okay, and when we get into your email right now, just 2 seconds from now, what do you think about our guest?
I thought she was fascinating, but we were talking a little bit off air about that, Mark. I mean, it's an interesting concept, but I think that her philosophy probably applies to maybe 10 or 15% of what I'm making that number up, but some smaller number. In other words, not everybody has that kind of entrepreneurial spirit and willing to take the risk and all that.
And not everybody's destined to go to college.
Right, and then, and we're talking about, is college a waste of time? And as I was explaining off the air that, my 17-year-old daughter is graduating high school and going off to college, and for her, it's like it's another 4 years. It's almost like an extension of high school. It's building the foundation of her maturity, her disciplines, getting more experience. It's not necessarily that we're putting her to college so that she'll necessarily learn something specific to go out and make money with, although I guess that'd be nice in a perfect world. But
yeah, because it's a lot cheaper to not go to college.
It is, but it's certainly, and we've all heard those stories, the Bill Gateses and the others who have...
The Tumblr kid, right, who just sold his high school dropout for $1.1 billion.
But I think that's definitely the exception and not the rule.
Absolutely.
I think for
Why don't you just have her do what I did and spend an extra 2 years in high school, do the 6-year high school thing? Okay, Rick. Here is your email that we received.
Edward was driving to junior high. He was the only guy shaving in each That was awkward.
No, that's fine. Okay, so Rick, here is the email we received for you. It says, prices seem to have increased so quickly. Should I wait for prices to go down and then try to purchase a home? Which kind of was almost along the lines of the attorney problem.
That presupposes that we're in a bubble and it's going to burst and we're going to go down. I don't know how many people are taking that tack. What do you think, Rick?
It's a great question. It's certainly one that is posed by a lot of people right now. The question is, is it going to go? What is it going to do? Is it going to continue to go up and then plateau? Is it going to continue to go up and then come back down? Is it going to not continue to go up and just come backwards right now? And of course, nobody really knows the answers to those questions.
No, but you've hit every single possibility.
Thank you. Yeah, well, it's because this is what
One of
I
those
do
three.
all day long, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I get this question all the time. I think that there is enough momentum right now that we clearly are going to continue to go up for at least the foreseeable future. And what I mean by that is 6 months to a year, unless there's some huge spike. And you know, and we have had. Jeremy's not here this week, but you know, interest rates the last 2 weeks been a tremendous amount of pressure on the upside. We're up 0.5 point, you know, from and just in the last 2 weeks, which is a lot. And if that momentum continues, for example, or if you know we're seeing a lot of people that were kind of sitting on the sidelines waiting to sell their house, they're coming on. So if the supply keeps increasing, you know, those things are going to have some impact on that. But at the end of the day, I think right now, if you're in a position where you can buy a house that fits your criteria, that you can afford, that you should do it now.
You know, it's too bad that Jeremy's not here because that's an interesting question. Is how much do interest rates have to rise in order to make up for the fact of a change in the price of the house?
Right,
You know
because
what I mean?
that in itself, of course, is going to have another impact on people down. Now, I'm not talking 6 months or a year, but let's say 3 years from now, 2 years from now, where you know interest rates are say at 5 or 6%, and you are thinking about selling your house, but then you go, well, geez, I refinanced or purchased my house, and I'm paying 3.5%. So to make an increase in their home size, you know, to kind of be what's called a move-up buyer, you know, how are the numbers going to work? They're going to end up to buy another house. They're going to pay so much more money than what they're paying at their current interest rate. It's going to be kind of interesting.
Do you think there'll be pressure to bring back the assumable loan?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you nobody even knows about the assumable loan, right? Because we've always had, you know, in our time.
Well, they eliminated it in what, in '82 or '83? I mean, like a long time ago.
FHA I think is assumable, right? So I think that's still kind of the case. Although you know, depending on where you're at, you're not even getting FHA loans. But it is an interesting question because, and remember, where were we at 1982? Right, peak interest rates. You're paying 14, 15% for your home mortgage. But since then, basically for the last 30 years, our rates have been going down for 30 years. So that's a whole other thing, and we talked about that a few weeks ago. What is the long-term cycle of interest rates? Are we destined to go back to 10, 11% mortgage rates? And if so, what's that going to do?
Oh, yeah, kill the prices.
Well,
Don't you think?
Well, you know, the article that I brought in, actually, I think maybe we should talk about it now because it's we kind of touched on it. You mentioned that, you know, the caller's asking about should I wait for prices to go back down? And there was an article this week, how to fix the great real estate after bubble. And this was in the Huffington Post. And so a environmental economic professor from Columbia University, so we're probably not talking about a liberal viewpoint, are we?
Yeah.
Suggests that Congress should force banks to write down the principal balances on millions of underwater mortgages to their post-bubble market values. That way we can get more inventory on the market, and it will hopefully help to, I guess, stabilize this price bubble.
But if they, I was going to say, if they wait long enough, the prices will go back up. But wait a minute, Columbia is a pretty liberal college, I guess. Oh, okay. I thought maybe you said it so serious. I thought you were actually serious about that.
Well, and then another article that I was reading that referred to this article is titled "How Not to Fix the Great Real Estate Bubble." Because again, what could potentially happen if banks are forced to write down those estimates? It basically goes on to say, so who gets hurt when you write off all of those billions? Because the banks aren't going to get hurt, the government's not going to get hurt. It's going to be basically the pension funds and taxpayers who now hold all of that debt.
Sure.
Right. So anyway, plus it, what does that really mean for the U.S. dollar and the safe haven aspect of the U.S. economy? Yeah. So anyway, this article basically.
When was that article written?
That was actually this past week. Yeah,
that's interesting because I mean we really have, to go back to your point. I mean, in fact, I was playing tennis last night, and there's 8 of us out there, and I said, hey, congratulations, by the way, you guys. Everybody who owned a home for the last year, your value has gone up at least $100,000 in the last 12 months. I could say that comfortably, blanket across the board. Doesn't matter if they were at $200,000 or You know, a
Wow.
$900,000 house, it's gone up at least $100,000 in the last 12 months, no question.
I was gonna say, because if you start off with 200,000, that's a 33%
And
increase.
I have one that's closing next
Or
week.
actually, excuse me, a 50% increase.
No,
So,
I have one that's closing next week that you know, I gave her some estimates a year and 3 months ago for $268,000 because her husband had passed away, and we were establishing data death cost basis.
Oh yeah.
And by the time there's a long story in there, but by the time we actually close next week, we're going to close at $413,000.
Wow.
Wow, that's it. Yeah. There you
So
go.
do the math. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
that's
ridiculous.
50% increase.
Yeah. And then
More than that.
because that price range is, of course, getting hit by 3 different buyers: first-time home buyers, investors, and right-size buyers.
Oh yeah.
Right.
So it's right in that sweet spot.
Exactly.
So Rick, you are quite
The realtor.
realtor guru here, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who are saying, I need a good realtor, someone I can trust, someone who's smart. How do they get a hold of you at Keller Williams Realty?
Well, best way to do it is just to give me a call, 415-302-6348. You can always send me an email at rick.warner@sbcglobal.net. And I've got a great fan page, Rick Warner Real Estate Broker, just about to get to 1,000 fans. So I'd love to have a few people click on the like there and get to that 1,000 fans there.
That would be fun. Okay, when we come back, we're going to get into a very interesting email for Mark and a couple of interesting articles that we have. So we're going to cut to our second commercial break, and again, the theme is seldom seen on TV. Here's the second trivia question. In The Wizard of Oz, we see 3 witches, each from a different location. From which location do we not see a witch? The first 3 callers with the correct answer win a free 3-day, 2-night stay at the Lighthouse Resort. Their website is lighthouse4fun.com. I just talked to them recently, and they're almost all filled up for this weekend, and it's only this weekend. So I mean, it's not even Sunday yet. So you're a little bit too late for that one. Call 888-912-1190. That's 888-912-1190 to answer this question. In The Wizard of Oz, we see 3 witches, each from a different location. From which witch? How about this? Which is? From which location do we not see a witch? 888-912-1190. Make sure to include your name, your email address. Speak slowly. Spell out your email for us 1 letter at a time. Don't touch that dial because the best of investing will be right back. Okay.
Which witch?
From the South.
Right.
From the South. From the South.
You don't see that Southern witch.